Good morning, guys. Happy Wednesday. Um, it is really early. It's 6:42 a.m. It is still completely dark outside. I'm an early morning person, so I normally go to sleep late and I wake up early. So I woke up early this morning. I set my alarm clock for normally 5, 5:15, 5:30-ish, one of those times, but I normally get up way before my alarm goes off. So that should tell you how early I wake up. So I wanted to release this word to you guys while I was up after I've had my prayer time and so forth. Um, and yeah, I came up to my loft, lit a candle, got my diffuser over there going, and I'm just sitting upstairs, guys. Yeah, I'm just sitting upstairs and uh felt the need to get on here and release this word to you guys. Had some prayer time this morning. And one thing the Lord had me pray for this morning was for those who profane marriage. And that was his exact word. And I'm going to give you guys the exact definition of profane because it's not a word that I use. So I knew it was the Lord speaking because I never say, oh, you're profaning marriage. Like I don't say that, but profane means devoted to which is not sacred or biblical, rather secular. It means worldly, ungodly, godless, disrespectful, right? And as I was praying, like literally in the middle of my prayer, I heard the Lord say, you profane marriage, right? And he was not talking about me. It was something he wanted me to pray for those who profane marriage, meaning, they're not seeing his marriage as something sacred and, uh, for his glory. It's more for their desires and what they want. And when I first heard him say it, because I was literally in the midst of prayer, I was like, Lord, thank you for waking me up this morning. And I was just praying and I heard you profane marriage. And I was like, what, Lord, me? And he's like, no, he was telling me to pray for those who profane marriage. Because I know that God has taught me to look at marriage in a totally different way than I did when I was in my marriage, right? I idolize my marriage. So I take full responsibility, not full responsibility, but I take partial responsibility for why God closed the door on my marriage and allowed it to break apart, right? And he allows things to break to build it back up. But it would have been so easy for me to blame everything on my ex-husband and him wanting the divorce and him having a worldly mindset and saying all the mean things and all the things. But I remember in the beginning of my marriage, I was like telling God everything my ex-husband did to me. And God was like, yeah, but you idolized your marriage. He didn't idolize you. And when he said that to me years ago, I was like, just kidding. I'm going to close my mouth and let you do what you're going to do because I couldn't argue with that. And God tells us that when you idolize something, it brings destruction. So I did profane marriage in my marriage by idolizing my ex-husband. Right. So that was something God had to teach me throughout this process. And now I totally look at marriage as a sacred thing, as bringing God glory, as bringing him honor. I'm not in a rush to get remarried. I'm not in a rush for a restoration. I know what season I'm in and my heart's open to God's leading, but never again will I profane marriage. But God literally had me pray for people this morning that profane marriage. And I heard it loud and clear. And it scared me at first because I was like, huh, me, Lord? I'm like, what do you mean I profane marriage? But again, I was in the midst of praying and it was something he wanted me to pray for. He wasn't saying I profane marriage. He was telling me to pray for people that profane marriage, that do not consider it sacred, but it's just something they want and desire. And that's why they're praying so hard and fasting for marriage and they're not even seeing the bigger picture. So when you take marriage, and this is going in a direction that I did not plan for because that's not the word, but I'm going to let the Holy Spirit just speak this morning. But when you profane marriage, you're thinking about you, like you're looking at everything from a worldly standpoint. It's like, I want to go on vacations. I want to take selfies. I want to change my status to married. Everything is on a worldly standpoint, and you're doing things for praise from the world versus praise from God. And it's important that we remember that God bringing together his marriages is not about us. And you guys know I can't stand when people idolize this, whatever they refer to as kingdom marriage. Like, it's not kingdom marriage, it's just a God ordained marriage, like a marriage that God ordains. But there's so much idolizing of that going on, and people are not idolizing God who holds everything in his hands. Like, you shouldn't idolize anything in this world but God. Like, he should be first and foremost throughout everything. So this morning he had me pray for those who profane marriage. And I did. But I'm going to give you guys this word. Somebody needs to hear that, because even that portion is going to hit somebody to change your perspective on how you see marriage and allow God to teach you the real meaning behind him bringing together marriages, and not just praying for this love of your life and feeling like it's going to fill some void, because it's not. Every void that's within you should be filled with God, not man. Anything else he adds to your life is an added benefit. And that ties into this word that he's having me release this morning. So let me get into this word, because I don't want to make this any longer than what I have to, but I have my notes here written on old school, like, paper. So I had this dream on 9/21, and many of you know that 9/21 was the last day of the 49 days, the 7 weeks that God gave me. If you remember back on August 3rd, the Lord said 49 days until you move. And that's been such a testimony for so many of you guys. But that's when I had this dream, the morning of 9/21, which would have been the last day of that 7-week period, the last day of that 49 days. So if you know, you know, but that's when I had this dream. And the Lord has been interpreting this dream for me since I had it. But yesterday I went onto the balcony and I just began to write what he was pouring into my heart. And I also have my New King James Bible right here that I'm going to read from and give you guys the story that the Lord gave me behind this word. So I pray that this blesses who it's for, and that you get what you need out of it. Okay. All right. So I had this dream the early morning of 9/21 of 24. With every word, take it back to God. Don't put your life story in the comments. Don't ask me if it's for you, what's for you, how does it pertain to you. Take them questions to God, because I will not answer them. Okay. I was at one of my best friend's parents' house. My best friend's name is Carrie. Her parents' names are Juanita and Anthony, and I'm giving these names to you for a purpose, okay? So I was at one of my best friend's house. Her name is Carrie, Cari. Her parents' name, Juanita. Miss Juanita is her mom, and Anthony is her dad. I call them mom and dad. Juanita's name means God's grace, and I'm giving you this for a reason. Juanita's name means God's grace. Anthony means priceless. And for Carrie's name, the Lord gave me the meaning of Kairos time, right? And in Welsh, Carrie also, it's derived from the name Carew, which means love. So for Carrie, the Lord spoke to me and he said, his Kairos time for love, okay? So Juanita, God's grace. Anthony, priceless. Carrie, God's Kairos time for love is what the Lord gave me, okay? I was on the back patio with her parents, and they both looked at me, and Miss Juanita said, it's turning around for you. It's turning around for you. It's turning around for your good. It's better than you expected. I could see by Dad's face, Anthony, that he was in agreement with what she said. I walked into the house and Carrie and I were about to bake some cookies, some really big cookies. I mixed up the batter and she tasted it and it was delicious. I tried it too. I then said to her, isn't it funny that I used to pray for T to text me? T is my ex-husband. I said, isn't it funny that I used to pray for T to text me and for him to try to get back with me? And now I have his number and I could text him and I don't. It's happening now, and I don't. Carrie looked at me and we both started cracking up laughing. End of the dream. Okay. This is the word that the Lord gave me from this dream. God is reminding you of his grace, Juanita. God is reminding you of his grace over this situation, this restoration. Hence, it's turning around for your good and it's better than expected. What you are stepping into in this season is priceless, Anthony, and beyond human estimation. The time, the Kairos moment for love, Carrie, is right for what you have been praying for what God has promised you, and for you to transition into this divine moment of truth and revelation. This whole process has matured you in an unexpected way. You have learned to not ever be reliant on your own efforts to bring a return or restoration. You trust God's process and are completely content with waiting and letting things play out in its fullness without feeling the need to reach out or keep up with the others involved in this restoration. This restoration that's soon to come will exceed your hopes and expectations. It will trump what you have imagined and played out in your head numerous times. You are no longer in a needy place. Catch this. You are no longer in a needy place where you feel that you have lack in your life. You don't feel like you are missing anything. Even in the midst of you not seeing what God has promised you come to pass, you are completely content and full in Christ. You have allowed the Lord to bring complete wholeness to your life during this journey. The empty spaces have already been filled with his love and affection. So therefore, what he is about to add is only a bonus to the abundance of love that you already feel. Soon and very soon, your current life will be a distant memory, and the new will completely occupy your heart to overflow. What God is mixing together will quench your sweet tooth. Your sweet tooth for love will be satisfied. When we allow him to do the mixing, the measuring, the prepping, and the baking, it's bigger and better than what we hoped and prayed for. Hence the big cookies and the batter tasting good. I hope y'all are catching this. And he's also outlining who this is for by saying where that person is right now. So many of you are going to know this is not for you, and many of you will know this is for you based on where you are currently in this spiritual walk and in this journey. When he blends things together, the quenching is on a deeper level, and it fulfills the longing in our hearts in ways we never thought possible, ways not possible by man alone. This bigger, richer, sweeter love will bring overflow. You could never create this on your own. Stay ready and keep the faith. You've done well and come too far to just throw in the towel at the home stretch. That is for somebody this morning. You will know if it's for you. The Lord literally outlined who this pertains to and where you are in this journey at this very moment. So if you don't meet what he's speaking in his word, you're going to know that this is not for you, because many of you are not quite there. In this dream, and I'm not going to jump too much into it because I've given you what God has given me for this interpretation. But in this dream, I said to Carrie, isn't it funny that I used to pray for T to text me, for him to try to get back with me? And now I have his number and could text him and I don't. It's happening now and I don't. That wasn't me being prideful or taking for granted what God had blessed me with. That was me being full from God. That was God having already filled me up with everything that I need. So when he releases promises to me, when he brings things back to me, when he restores to me, I'm not in a weak place to where I'm clinging on to that thing for dear life. You know how some people will pray for God to bless them financially, right? They've always lived in poverty. And if you haven't allowed God to completely fill you during this journey of lack, when God blesses you with those riches, the poverty mindset is still going to be there. So when he brings an overflow of finances into your life, people that people that hasn't allowed God to fill them up properly during this journey, they cling to every penny. They are scared to spend. They are scared to give. God may say, give an offering to this person, sow into this person, give more than a 10% tithe here. And they will literally hold on to that for dear life. They will question everything God is telling them to do because they feel like by giving of the overabundance God has blessed them with, that eventually they're going to be broke. And that's because they have a poverty mindset. And throughout this journey of them being broke, they never allowed God to properly fill them up. All they were doing was waiting on the edge of their seat for God to restore something. But when God takes us through this journey of not being in that place of promise, it's to build us up. It's to teach us faith. It's to teach us to persevere. It's to strengthen our ailments, our weaknesses. But if you don't allow God to do that, when he blesses you with what you prayed for, you will handle it incorrectly. So me saying, isn't it funny that I used to pray for T to text me and for him to try to get back with me, and now I have his number. Now it's happening and I don't. That was signifying how God has filled me up, and how when he brings a promise into my life, I'm not holding on to it for dear life, because if he promised it to me, it's already mine. I don't have to go crazy and call the person every 24 hours, try to see them, try to do this, try to do that. All I have to do is let God do the mixture, mix everything together, bake it, prep it, pull it out when it's time. Everything will flow in God's divine timing. And I pray that this is making sense for who it's for. It's me coming from a healed place. And if you guys know me by now, I've talked about this before. I'm not in a place where I'm gung-ho for marriage. I enjoy being by myself. I enjoy being single. I desire marriage. And I know that that is coming my way very, very soon, if you haven't caught it yet. But I'm not on the edge of my seat waiting for it. I'm not praying every day for God to send marriage my way or love my way. I have marriage through God. He's my first husband. I have love through him. He's my first husband. He's the only one that can fill me up with all the love I need to the capacity that I am overflowing before I even meet that other person, before I'm even loved from anyone else. My first love is him. So it's not coming from a place of pride in the dream or, oh, let me take advantage of what God has done it, so I'm taking. No, it was me coming from a healed place. And in the dream, we just burst out laughing. Right? So I pray that you're catching, whoever this is for, I pray that you're catching this, because the way God outlined the interpretation of this dream, you're going to know if this is for you or not, because he literally outlined the type of person that this is for, the people that he is speaking to by this prophetic dream in this word. It's very much so detailed and outlined, like where you are in this journey. And if you're not quite here, you're going to know this is not for me. But if this is for you, God is going to nudge at them heartstrings, and you're going to be like, this is my word. Because if this is for you, you have relationship with God. You don't need a prophetic voice to prophesy. You know what God has for your life because you have spiritual ears to hear. You know where you are in this journey. For this specific word, the Lord brought me to the story of Hannah, and this is going to tie everything in. Okay, I'm going to start from 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 12. Okay, and this is going to make sense, so catch this. 1 Samuel chapter 1, I'm starting at verse 12, and I'm reading in my New King James Bible. And it happened as she continued praying before the Lord that Eli watched her mouth. Now Hannah spoke in her heart, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore, Eli thought she was drunk. So Eli said to her, how long will you be drunk? Put your wine away from you. But Hannah answered and said, no, my Lord, I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. Catch this. She's praying, and she's obviously she's grieved, right? Sorrowful, another word for sorrowful is grieved, miserable, depressed. Okay. And many of us start out in that state when we're praying for God to restore, to bring something into our lives. We become like Hannah because it hasn't happened for so long. We begin to have a sorrowful spirit and we're crying and doing the most. And it's not because we're weak, right? It's because we long for something. Our spirit is grieved, right? Our spirit is grieved by the things that we desire that we know God has the ability to bring, but He hasn't brought it yet. But when He has you in a waiting period, it's for purpose. Catch this. I have drunk neither wine nor intoxicating drink, but have poured out my soul. Her soul is her heart, her inner man, her heart, her will, her emotions. Okay. I have poured out my soul before the Lord. Do not consider your maidservant a wicked woman, for out of the abundance of my complaint and grief, she's saying, I'm grieved. Like there's an overflow, an overabundance of grief that I'm feeling right now. Okay. Out of the abundance of my complaint and grief, I have spoken until now. She's saying, I'm praying like this and I can't speak the words because I am overflowed with grief, with sorrow. Like my spirit is downcast. Like I'm not in a good place right now. Okay. Whoever this word is for, you've been there at one point in time. But catch this. Then Eli answered and said, go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition, which you have asked of him. And she said, let your maidservant find favor in your sight. So the woman went her way. So the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. So after she did all this, Eli told her what God was going to do. Okay. And it says she went away, she ate, and her face was no longer downcast. Hannah eating in this portion of scripture is not just physical food, guys. She received spiritual nourishment and peace from the Lord. He says you can't live on bread alone, right? But by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God, every word from God. He is the bread of life. So for us to be spiritually nourished, we have to partake in him. So don't see this as just she ate physical food. In this moment, after she did all that she needed to do, and she's still on this journey of waiting for God, she ate, and her face was no longer sad. Her countenance had changed because she was nourished by the bread of life. She was nourished by God. So what God is saying in this set of verses, as well as this dream, is that you may have started in a sorrowful state, with a sorrowful spirit, praying for this thing to come to pass. But throughout this journey, you've allowed him to spiritually nourish you. And your face is no longer sad. You're no longer in a state to where you're sorrowful. Your spirit is sorrowful. You're not in that state anymore. Just like Hannah went from being sad and grieved to her countenance being changed. She ate. Catch this. She ate, and her face was no longer sad. That is not just a physical food. She was nourished by the bread of life. The bread of life is the Lord God. He filled her up. Her spirit was no longer grieved, and she was no longer sad and doing the most because she allowed God to spiritually nourish her. Whoever this word is for, this dream is for, you've allowed God to spiritually nourish you. And you're at this point in your life where God is getting ready to pour and give you the things that you prayed for. But just like Hannah, when God blessed her with what she was praying for, which is child, right? She had no problem giving that child up to God. She wasn't in a weak point where she was holding on to that promise for dear life. She gave that child up to be used by God. Just like in this dream, I'm like, isn't it funny that it's happening and I'm not doing the most over it? It's because I'm spiritually full and nourished and loved by God. So anything else he sends in my life is overflow. Because the real blessing is God filling me. The real blessing is being loved by God. So anything else he brings, I'm not holding on to it for dear life when he restores it. Hannah didn't hold on to Samuel for dear life when God brought him to her. She gave him up because she had already ate from the bread of life and was already spiritually nourished. I'm going to keep reading. Then they rose early in the morning and worshiped before the Lord and returned and came to their house at Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah's knew Hannah, his wife, and the Lord remembered her. So basically they're saying they had sex, right? That's what he knew her means, right? Of course, he knows her, that's his wife, but this translates to they had sex, right? They were intimate with one another. So it came to pass in the process of time. So it came to pass in the process of time that Hannah conceived and bore a son and called his name Samuel, saying, because I have asked for him from the Lord. Now the man Elkanah and all his house went up to offer to the Lord the yearly sacrifice of his vow, but Hannah did not go up. For she said to her husband, not until the child is weaned, then I will take him, and he may appear before the Lord and remain there forever. So Elkanah, her husband, said to her, do what seems best for you. Wait until you have weaned him. Only let the Lord establish his word. Only let the Lord establish his word. Then the woman stayed and nursed her son until she had weaned him. Now, when she had weaned him, she took him up with her with 3 bulls, 1 ephah of flour, and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord in Shiloh. And the child was young. Then they slaughtered a bull and brought the child to Eli. And she said, oh, my Lord, as your soul lives, my Lord, I am the woman who stood by you here, praying to the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me my petition, which I have asked for. I said in the dream, it's happening, and I don't, right? Like God had granted me a restoration, right? Therefore, I also have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he shall be lent to the Lord. So they worship the Lord there. And I'm going to continue. I feel led. And Hannah prayed and said, my heart rejoices in the Lord. Like my heart is full with him. Like my heart is full of glory for the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. I smile at my enemies because I rejoice in your salvation. No one is holy like the Lord, for there is none besides you, nor is there any rock like our God. Talk no more so very proudly. Let no arrogance come from your mouth, for the Lord is the God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty men are broken, and those who stumble are girded with strength. Those who were full have hired themselves out for bread, and the hungry have ceased to hunger. Woo! Y'all better catch that. Even the barren has borne 7, and she who has many children has become feeble. The Lord kills and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and brings up. The Lord makes rich, makes poor, and makes rich. He brings low and lifts up. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the beggar from the ash heap to set them among princes and make them inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he has set the world upon them. He will guard the feet of his saints, but the wicked shall be silent in darkness. For by strength no man shall prevail. The adversaries of the Lord shall be broken in pieces. From heaven he will thunder against them. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. Then Elkanah went up to the house at Ramah, but the child ministered to the Lord before Eli the priest. Hannah did not hesitate to give what God had promised her back to him. She knew who God is. She knew all the glory comes from God. He makes the rich, he allows the rich to be rich, he allows the poor to be poor. She knew to rejoice in her Savior. It wasn't about the promise for her. So she didn't hesitate to give it up. It wasn't about the promise for me in this dream. I didn't hesitate to give it up. When God has filled you, you don't hesitate to give what he's blessed you with up to him for his glory. The marriage he's sending you, you're going to give it up to him for his glory. The finances he's sending you, you're going to give it up to him for his glory. You're not going to hold on to these things with a poverty mindset, thinking that in any minute he's going to snatch it because you've allowed yourself to eat and be full from the bread of life. to where your countenance is not sad anymore. Your spirit is not sorrowful anymore. Again, sorrowful means grieved, depressed. She went from having a sorrowful spirit to eating, and her countenance was changed. She ate from the bread of life. It wasn't about physical food. It's about allowing God to nourish you through this journey to where when he sends that promise to you, you're not trying to hold on it for dear life. You're not overpowering everything and holding it with a strong arm. You know who your help comes from. I don't know who this word is for, but who it's for, you'll know. Just like mom and dad said in the dream, they said, it's turning around for your good. It's turning around for you. It's turning around for your good. It's better than expected. That's what Mama Juanita said. Her name means God's grace. And Dad, Anthony, was in agreement, priceless. That's all I'm going to say. Whoever this is for, it's his Kairos time for love. It's your Kairos time for love. It's his timing because it's his divine timing. But he's saying it's the Kairos time for love for you. This is not for everybody because some of y'all, the qualities of this person that God was calling out in this interpretation, you're not quite there. And that's okay. You will be. But for who this is for, you're going to know it. So that is the word. I pray that this blesses who it's for. I love you guys, and I hope you have a good day. Yeah, that's it, y'all. I love you. Bye.